Amitabh sir, you unmute yourself. You unmute, sir. Unmute yourself.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Shall we begin, sir?
No,
Yeah.
sir. 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Let me make it. You can say, sir. It is not that. I think I wanted to make it Facebook Live.
Okay, you are not able to do that.
No. Then you have to make me host, na? Then
Okay,
I will pass on that.
I am making you host.
पासवर्ड तुम्हारे आज की होगी तो Hello, Tanvir ji.
Yes, sir.
Ah, am I? No.
Yeah, you are audible. You are audible, sir.
No, I am audible, but who is that Bhaskar Kumar Das? You are. That is the host now.
Okay.
I think you, yeah, you must make me host.
Uh, I am host now. Fine.
You are the host. Right.
I'm
Now,
not host.
change the position. Make me the host and make yourself co-host.
Sir, that you will have to do in return in order to make me co-host. Because if I'll make you host first, then I can't make myself co-host.
Right. So, what shall be done?
Needs to be out in your settings. I think we should do it later.
So make me host so that I can make it live on Facebook.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, who is host right now? Am I host right now?
Bhaskar Kumar Das, someone is there.
Who is Bhaskar Kumar Das?
I don't know.
Yeah, here is Bhaskar Kumar Das. Ask him
Mm.
to make you host. He can make you host.
Mr. Bhaskar Kumar Das, if you are listening to me, please make me host. Hello? He's not.
So let's begin it. We'll try it in the middle of the session. Dell is host now. You're sir host now.
Yeah, I'm host. I'm host now. I'm host now. I can do it. Right. Live streaming is there on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that will do, right? Okay. So start, because why should we waste time, right? Okay, we will do it. First of all, welcome. Good day to all. Today is our 43rd webinar in this lockdown period, and I'm happy to announce that, sir, we have many participants from all over India, and we have versatile personalities addressing our webinars, right? From former Vice Chancellor to the Vice Chancellor, as well as environmentalist to economist. We have our guests from Sir Jammu and Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and it is our proud privilege that during this lockdown period we have got some good benefits, as well as we have also provided some academic advantages to the academia. First of all, so thank you very much, because you are a big name, right, as far as language and literature and linguistics is concerned. uh, Dr. Amitabh Dwivedi. I should not have many words to introduce you, sir. You have wrote many books, including your recent books, a grammar on Saraji, Dogri and its dialects, a grammar on of Hadoti, right? These are all your research works, right? At the regional level, as well as it is also very well-known books. They are also very well-known books. Dr. Dwivedi is University Faculty of Linguistics. He is heading the School of Languages and Literature at Shri Vaishno Devi University, India. And his research interests include language documentation, writing descriptive grammar, and the preservation of rare and engendered languages in South Asia. And this is quite innovative about him, that he is contributing to the education, contributing to the educational world by making his sincere efforts to preserve rare and engendered languages of India as well as South Asia. He has contributed numerous papers and He has also written numerous books. I should not go in it, but sir, welcome. I should not waste more time. Sir, welcome on Zoom. Welcome on our 43rd webinar. We are, we feel proud that Miss, you will address us, and we are just your juniors. Kindly enliven the moment. Kindly enlighten us, sir. Thank you. Start your, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Professor Jaswant Rathod, for this kind introduction. And I welcome all the participants. I'm happy that you have joined me in this session. And as you know, that I'm going to talk about text, textuality, and discourse. I have also prepared a comprehensive presentation slide, so that will be helpful for you to understand my topic and the things that I want to convey during this presentation. So without any further delay, I share my slide and start with my presentation. That is, I hope all of you can, you are able to see this slide,
Yes,
that
sir.
is text, textuality, and discourse. So I carefully selected this topic, text, textuality, and discourse. And as you can see, text, textuality, and discourse, they are interrelated to each other. And during this presentation, you will see how these three terms are interlinked and interconnected to each other. It's very interesting topic, and you will definitely find new ways how to analyze a text. So in this presentation, we have theoretical viewpoints uh, by different theoreticians, some formalist, some structuralist, some post-structuralist, that you will also find. Also, I will take one example of a text, and I will give you some insight that how once you analyze or once you do a textual analysis, how you can enrich your interpretation. That thing will also be there. So first come to text and textuality. Now, these two terms are there, text and textuality, that we have. And I'm starting with the very basic, like what is. So this is like what, when we raise this question, what generally it indicates our basic inquiry. Our like human beings, they are quite inquisitive about things. So basically, when we use what is this, what is that, what is something, that is the starting of knowing anything. So the first question related to any object or related to anything starts with what is that. So here, what is text actually? Now, popularly, when we describe a concept, then generally we go to etymology. Now, what is etymology? Etymology is the origin of that word, how that word uh, is originated, from where it is derived. So now when we
Devidi,
look at the etymology of this word, when we look at what is text, then we find two references, chiefly two references we find, and both are from Latin. As you know that English language has borrowed from many languages, like Latin is, then Greek is there, and other French is also there, other European languages. So like these two references we find when we say what is text. First reference is textus, and the meaning of textus is a tissue or literary style. So this literary style is also associated with the text when we read literature, or when we read any other text, when we read a novel, when we read a poetry, then literary style is very much there. So it's like very uh, an inherent part of a text. Then the second thing, that is texture. Like texture is another. So you have one reference is textus, and another is texture. So one reference is of noun, literary style, fine, it is a noun, and another reference is of verb, that is texture. Now, what is texture? Texture means woven, like something is woven. So we are talking about the verb weave, like weave, and And when we say weave, then the image of a fabric comes into our being. So image of a cloth comes into our being. So this is like two things. You need to keep these two things, like one literary style in your mind, and another is the texture, that is like the fabric that you need to keep in mind. And when we look at the dictionary meaning of the text, then there are many meanings, but this meaning is relevant to my presentation. So I have picked this meaning, something that is written or printed, that is a text. But what is more important, not the physical form of what is printed or written, but the content. So when we talk about content, then we are not talking about the quantity, we are talking about the quality. So content here refers to the quality of the text. So quality is more important. So something that is quality is basically an abstract thing that we have. So we have a quality of something that is an abstract, and we are not concerned about the physical form. So it is like an abstraction form. We are moving from the physical form to an abstract form. So this is again an abstraction. So text, in text itself, there is an abstraction, because text is actualized in a physical form, but it becomes meaningful in abstraction. So this is the way you need to understand the text. Now, when we talk about textuality, now this textuality, this ity suffix is very interesting and very important. So when we say a text has a textuality, ity, the meaning of ity suffix is quality of being something. So we can have a quality of anything, and we use ity. For example, we have electricity. Now ity is like the quality of being electric. Fine. So similarly, when we say ity suffix and when we say textuality, then we are talking about the quality of text. We are talking about the quality of the text, and that is necessary for textuality. So when we talk about quality, again there is an abstraction we have. So both these things you need to keep in mind, that I think someone's audio is on. Please mute the audience audio. So this is one thing that we have. We have a quality, we have an abstraction, we have a physical form. Now the second question comes, like, so these two questions are addressed, like what is text and what is textuality. This is quite addressed now. But where is text situated? Now anything that is a text, where it is situated? It is situated in a context. So we say like what comes before and after a text is a context. So here, like, this is a text in the middle, and there is a context before and there is a context afterwards. So now we know some basic thing about text, textuality, and where we find text. So we find text in some situation, we find text in some context. Now moving to the next slide, that, like, there is, when we study text, textuality, then it is also interesting to note, like, what is the relationship between literature, language, and linguistics. As you know that any literature, it is written in a language. So generally the concept of literature is something that is in a written form. We have oral literature as well, but written literature is more permanent, and it is passed on to future generation. It can be preserved. So generally the concept of literature is something in a textual form, and basically something has a written form. But again, these two things are associated, as I previously discussed, that a text has a literary style and it is woven. So similarly, a textual form is also like, these are inherent thing. A textual form has a literary style and a fabric, and it is like well knitted. This is inherent in a textual form. So we know that literature is an object of study. Like, we have courses like BA honors in literature, English and literature, like MA masters in literature. So we know very well that what is literature. It's an object of study. And now so language, the medium of text. So when we compare these two, literature and language, we can very easily say that language is primary and literature is secondary. So first comes language, then comes literature. This is like, if there is no language, then there is no literature. So language exists first. So the necessary condition for a literature to exist is like there must be some language. So we have a language, and that language becomes the medium of text. So any language can become a medium of text, but this language is also an object of study. So like literature is an object of study, language is an object of study. This is primary, this is secondary. Now the role of linguistics comes, like what linguistics does actually. Linguistic is basically the meta language. Now when we talk about meta language, what is meta language? Language used about language. So when we want to describe a language, then we definitely lead some other language, some other words, some other vocabulary in order to describe it properly. This is basically the work of linguistics. So this is quite neat connection what that we have with literature, language, and linguistics. Since language is like responsible for the creation of a text, and literature is itself a text. So this is like, one is itself, and what is like working as an ancillary, as an auxiliary. So language is primary, it is working to produce literature. Now when we talk about this woven, like the text has texture, we say text has texture, or text is woven, and this verb is also there. Then we need to know how it is woven actually, how it is knitted, how this fabric of text is created. We have already discussed that literature is a textual form and object of study, and this text is like inherent quality of a text is literary style and woven. Now this assures terms syntagmatic and paradigmatic comes into being when we try to find out how this text is structured, how this text is woven. Now these are two lines from Shakespeare's sonnet, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, thou art more lovely and more temperate. Now this is also a text. Now when we say like how the text is structured, this is also a fine example of text. Now when we talk about this syntagmatic relationship, then you can see these arrow marks, like these arrow marks, these one word. So like these words, they are in syntagmatic relationship. These like shall and I, a syntagmatic relationship, I and compare, syntagmatic relationship, compare and the syntagmatic relationship, to and a. So that means like how the word order or syntax is responsible for a meaningful utterance or a sentence, that is basically in line with syntagmatic relationship. So this is like syntagmatic. I cannot change the order, like I cannot put compare here. So I cannot say compare shall I and to the, so like, or I cannot say like shall I compare the summer's day to. So like if I change the meaning, then it will become quite meaningless. Similarly, thou art more lovely and more temperate. Again, we have this relationship with one word. So like these words, like there is a relation between these two words. Why these two words are coming together? And what is this relationship? This relationship is syntagmatic relationship. So Shri talks about like this relationship is syntagmatic. So this is like syntagmatic relationship that we have. We will discuss in the next slide both the relationships, but I'm just giving you a superficial view how text is actually structured. Now, as you can see, these arrow marks like summer, spring. So I can say, shall I compare thee to a spring morning? So instead of saying, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, I can say, shall I compare thee to a spring's morning? That is fine. What I am doing here, I'm substituting summer with spring. I'm substituting day with morning. So this is a substitution. Here substitution is there. Here, for example, I can say, in place of thou art more lovely and more temperate, I can say thou art more beautiful and more calm. So it is also like, it also sounds good. So again, like what lovely is substituted by beautiful, temperate is substituted by calm. Now this thing is paradigmatic. This substitution thing is actually a paradigmatic. So in a language, when a text is structured, both these things, syntagmatic, and syntagmatic is here horizontal. Like this is the horizontal axis. And as you can see, this paradigmatic, it is a vertical axis. So X and Y. So this is like how the text is textured, how the text is structured actually. So here this is, and these terms syntagmatic and paradigmatic actually, these terms were given by Ferdinand de Saussure, and as you know that Saussure is also known as the father of modern linguistics. And these terms are quite quite important. And once you study structuralism, then you must know what is actually syntagmatic and what is actually paradigmatic. Now we will see like what are these two. These, as I said, like X and Y axis. So here axis because it is plural, otherwise I here. So two axes of semantic relationship. Well, what is semantic? Something that is related to meaning. So we have a field like semantics, like the study of meaning. And here these two axes actually they are responsible for the construction of a text. And why we say they are responsible for the construction of the text, because they are related to some meaningfulness. So there is a meaning here. So that's why semantic relations. So paradigmatic and syntagmatic, they are actually semantic relations. That means related to meaning. Without them, without paradigmatic and syntagmatic, there is like no meaning. There is no meaning. So now we will study in bit detail like what is paradigmatic. It is basically a relation of contrast and substitution. So as you can see, when paradigmatic is contrast and substitution, like what we are doing actually here, it is a contrast. Like what is summer, that is not spring. What is spring, that is not summer. Like what is day, that is not morning. So this type of contrast is there. So what type of, this is also an example of antonym. What type of antonym is this? This is actually taxonomic sisters. Like they are taxonomic sisters. Like if I say Sunday and Monday, now Sunday and Monday are also antonyms, but they are taxonomic sisters. That means like they are the day. But if I say like which day you will prefer, you will say Sunday, because Sunday definitely you get some rest, or like Sunday you can spend with your family, but Monday is a working day. So most of the people say like, okay, Sunday, I prefer Sunday than Monday. So they are again antonyms. So similarly, when we say contrast, so this type of taxonomic sister contrast, like summer is also a season, spring is also a season, but there is a taxonomic contrast here. And here like morning and day, they are also like day and morning, they are semantically related to each other. Temperate and calm, like they are related. Lovely and beautiful, they are related to each other. But still we have this antonymy relationship here, and basically this relationship is like paradigmatic relationship, contrast and substitution. And when we talk about syntagmatic relationship, it is a relationship of combination and co-occurrence restrictions. So like this is a combination, like this combined with this, I combined with compare, the combined with to, a combined with somewhere. So this is we are combining, but this is not a random combining. But what is there? It is co-occurrence restriction. We have a co-occurrence restriction. They are co-occurring, but there is a restriction. As I said, like we can't put compare in the front. I can't say compare shall I thee. So this will become like, you will say like, okay, you do not know English, or what you are talking about. It is not making sense. So this is like co-occurrence restriction is also there, and we have at the same time combination is also there. So these two relationships are responsible for the construction of the text. So this, like when you read poetry, when you read novel, when you read anything, or when you analyze spoken thing, these relationships are always functional. So I have some examples like these, like at sound level, how can we see paradigmatic relationship? You can see at sound level how these relationships are functional. Now these three words are there: cat, sat, and mat. Now there is only one difference in these three words: the first sound. In the cat, it is ka sound. In the sat, it is sa sound. In the mat, it is ma sound. So again, this is a substitution, contrast. Ka is contrasting sa sound, sa is contrasting ma sound. So paradigmatic relationship is also at sound level. At stylistic level, in poetry, generally we consider there should be a rhyme. If it is not the end rhyme, then it should be internal rhyme. Now here, this is one example of end rhyme. The sun is shining bright. This is a lovely sight. Now why I have selected sight? Because it is rhyming with bright. So again, this type of relationship is also contrast and substitution. So at sound level, this is also a paradigmatic relationship. At stylistic level, this is also a paradigmatic relationship. Now when it comes to syntagmatic relationship, like the cat sat on the mat. Now this is like the cat sat on the mat. So this is like a co-occurrence restrictions. So I cannot say the mat sat on the cat. If I replace this mat with cat, then you will say like it is meaningless, because mat cannot sat on the cat, because mat is inanimate and cat is an animate object, animate. So, but we can change the cat with the dog. We can change sat with slap, or we can change mat with couch. So this is like this is actually paradigmatic. When we substitute, when we contrast, we can change any verb. We can set, we can like we can also use ate, like the cat ate on the mat. Fine. So this type of the or we can say like the cat sat on the bed. So like I can change. So this type of thing is always there. This two axes of semantic relations, they are responsible generally for the constitution of a text, how text is here we studied like where text is situated, but here we come to know like how text is actually structured, how text comes into being.
Sir, is there a problem of internet?
Amitabh sir, you have some issues with the mic. Hello.
Dr. Amitabh Dwivedi sir is unaudible. We are not
Yeah,
able to
yes,
listen.
yes. We are solving the problem. The problem is with the host and the internet.
No
So,
issues, sir. We are participants. Sort out this problem.
Professor Dwivedi sir, are you listening to us? Yeah. I know that sir is not audible. There is some issue of network there, right? Because it is Jammu and Kashmir, right? So we have to be somewhat can say wise about this. Honorable sir.
Sir, in Jammu and Kashmir, UT, we have 2G.
I know. I have many friends in Kashmir.
Okay, sir.
Sir. So we are solving it. We are talking to Dr. Dwivedi. Let me talk.
Rathod sir, Amitabh
Sir,
Dwivedi is not there.
sir, there is no. Net problem with there, internet problem with there, sir. I'm calling him. Sir, is there a problem of net? Yeah, he's there, I think. Yes, sir. Kindly unmute yourself.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry this happened,
yeah.
but I realized lately that okay, I am not online, but I think we have plenty of time, so we can cover this thing. So,
Yes, sir.
so I'm just coming to this, like what we were discussing actually. We were discussing this syntagmatic relationship we discussed. I think that syntagmatic relationship is actually the relationship of combination and co-occurrence restriction. As I have given you examples, like the cat can be replaced by the dog, but you cannot change the order of the cat. Cat cannot come first. It is always the cat and not cat and the. So this is basically co-occurrence restriction that we have. And in paradigmatic relationship, generally we have this relationship of contrast and substitution. So this we have seen, like at sound level it can have, and once we are talking about the rhyming, then it can also happen, like bright is rhyming with sight, and very carefully we select when it is an end rhyme. And when it is internal rhyme, then obviously we are a bit careful when we are writing poetry. So this is like paradigmatic and syntagmatic relationship is actually responsible for the construction of the text. When we talk about how text is constructed, then the text is constructed because we have this relationship. We have this relationship, and because of this relationship, we have a text. And when we talk about the cat, so this the word cat sat on the mat, these are like you can consider each individual word as a sign. And how they become meaningful when, according to Saussure, when one sign interacts with another sign. So what Saussure says everything depends upon relations. So this is like very important thing, like how language becomes meaningful when one sign interacts with other sign. Sign one interacts with sign two interacts with sign three, and there is a relationship between these two signs. And that's why the entire text becomes meaningful. So like this is an example of a text, like the cat sat on the mat. Now this is an example of the text because one sign interacts with other sign and it becomes meaningful to us. So like moving further, like how text is constructed, and as we can see, like this is basically again starting from the minimum and reaching to maximum. Like sentence here you can consider as a maximum, otherwise discourse is maximum, but minimum is always a phoneme. So phoneme is the basic sound, like we have this b sound, and when we have this b sound in this morpheme, there are two morpheme, bat and this plural marker, so it becomes bats, and bats is one word. So here two morpheme, and they are responsible for this one word. Then one word is like a phrase, a noun phrase, like determiner and noun. So the bats, fine. And the clause, while it is proved the bats harbor viruses, fine. So this is like two clauses we have. So we have this line here, and what this line indicates, like these are clauses. So generally in a clause we have only one verb, but in a sentence we can have more than one verb. So this is an example of a sentence, like it is proved that the bats harbor viruses. Now here we have two verbs, like harbor is one verb and the prove is second verb. So this is basically how text is constructed, starting from the phoneme and reaching to the sentence, or basically discourse. So in a discourse we have more than one sentence. So that is, but here for your understanding, I have starting with a sound and reaching to a sentence. So this is this thing like minimum and maximum I have done for your understanding. So this is again, if you have a problem in understanding how one sign interacts with other sign, and in order to understand like the concept of sign given by Saussure, that's why I have selected this thing. Like here, bat is also one sign, and this plural marker is also another sign. So these two signs are also interacting, and once they interact, then what happens? They becomes a plural bat. Similarly, the is one sign and bats is another sign. So these two signs are interacting. So similarly, these are individual words are signs, and when they interact, then they make the things meaningful to us. This is how a text is constituted, or how the text is formed. Now, we have discussed like sentence. Now we move to beyond sentence. Now this is like another one example that we have, and this example is from Cohesion in English. So this is a book by Halliday and Hassan. Now what it says, the example is wash and core 6 apples, put them in a bowl. So as I said, like when we have more than one sentence, then when we have a discourse. Uh, linguistically, I'm not using the term discourse in a Foucauldian or Foucaultian sense. I'm using discourse in linguistic sense, language sense. So you can say like when you have more than one sentence, then you have a discourse. So this text is also creating a discourse. But when we analyze this text, what we see, like this is a subjectless. So like this is an imperative, example of an imperative. Both the sentences are example of imperative. We also find like there is a cohesive relation with them. Like when we say put them, and when we raise the question, what is them? So them is only meaningful when, because this antecedent is there, apples antecedent is there. So them refers back to apples, and then it becomes meaningful. So what is happening, like there is a sentence boundary, but them is crossing that boundary in order to search the meaning. So this thing quite happen in the novels, in the poetry, that even after the sentence boundary, we have certain references. Here there are two sentences, but you sometimes you need to cross many boundaries, many sentence boundaries, to find out what is the antecedent, what it refers to. So this is basically cohesive relation across sentences. But the question remains, like, have we defined the text? Yes. So like we in the initial side, I said like what is the text, and I have given you this rosy definition that something that is written or printed work in terms of content rather than physical form is a text. But this is not actually the text, the concept of text, that it's not that easy to understand the concept of text. So that's why I have raised this question, have we defined the text? Yes. The answer is no. So let's move further. Now this is again, so what we did in the first slide, like we took help of the etymology, like Latin texture we have, that means to weave, and this suggests like something that is coherent, integrated, and collection of sentences. It is like a fabric, that the text that is constituted, formed as a fabric, must be coherent and integrated. But this is not satisfactory. Like this is not satisfactory because etymology is misleading. So if we blindly follow etymology, then sometimes we are going away from the actual meaning, the actual understanding. So this is not actually the case, that a text is always a coherent or integrated collection. That is not the case, and not only the integrated collection of sentences. Then if this is not the case, then what is actually the case? So actually the situation is three examples I have, like Tolstoy, War and Peace. Now this War and Peace is also text, you will agree. Road sign stop is also a text. So this is also a text. And this is like third sentence, this colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Now this is like quite meaningless sentence. It is given by Noam Chomsky. And another sentence, like these two sentences are one after another, visiting relatives are annoying. So these two sentences are there. So what do you think about sentence 1, 2, and 3? So again, the thing is like that we discussed in the very first slide, that we discussed in very first slide, that a text is situated in a context that we discussed. And this thing is still relevant here when we talk about this thing. Even like Tolstoy, War and Peace, and if you wish me good morning and if I answer War and Peace, then you will say like, what is the context? So you wish me good morning and I say War and Peace, and like you say you wish me like any other thing, or you ask me like where is English department, and I say stop, then again like it is not the context. So like in order to become meaningful, like if this text is a text when it is situated in a context. If this text is not situated in the context, then this text is not actually a text. War and Peace, stop. So here like these two sentences are there, they are even one after another, but whether we need to find out whether they are situated in a context or not. At surface level, because you have this knowledge of Tolstoy, War and Peace, so you will say yes, War and Peace is a text. But when you say War and Peace is a text written by Tolstoy, you are talking about the physical form. But physical form is immaterial. Physical form is not important for us. What is important, as I said, the abstraction of the text is important. And how that abstraction of the text comes into being when the text falls in between context. So what happens actually? So this is like the realization. If the context is unknown, then text is not a text. So when the context is knowable, then text becomes a discourse. Now this is a subtle difference. A text is a text, anything is a text. As I said, like all these three are example of text. But these are not example of discourse. They will become example of discourse only when we have this knowable context. So we have a knowable context, automatically text will convert into discourse. So like when we are driving and we find the sign stop, it is a discourse for us. It is not now text, because we know like what stop means, like I need to stop. So when it's a red light, then we know like red light means stop. So this is not a text for me. It becomes automatically discourse because it is a knowable context. And Mikhail Bakhtin says like discourse is concrete living totality. That means like discourse is, when we say concrete living totality, that means like we have all the knowledge, like knowledge of the text, that why this text occurs here, what is the meaning associated with it, and other associations related to. So it is like concrete living totality for us. So something, a meaningfulness in total, like it is a meaningfulness in a package that we have. So this is like a subtle difference, and it is quite interesting to note this. Like you might have found like this knowable thing is very important. And what is knowable? This context. So we move further, and now this is, the boy's name was Santiago. Now this is the first sentence of The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. Fine. Paulo Coelho, this is a very famous book, Alchemist, bestseller. And the first sentence is the boy's name was Santiago. Now what I have done, I have decontextualized the text. Like this is the first sentence, but what I have done, like I have removed it from the other context. So like there is a sentence after this, there is a paragraph after this, many pages after this. But what I have done, like I have excluded it. I have excluded it from it, and I have decontextualized it. So this concept is also important when you read a text. And generally we decontextualize. We decontextualize when we are writing a research. We decontextualize. So extract. We put an extract. We put a quote. But what we do, though it is decontextualized from the actual text, we give a reference. We write something about it. We inform the audience about it. Okay, now I am talking about this thing, and then we describe it. So this concept is also important when we study text, context, and discourse. That is again important for us. Now these three things, like we have this knowledge of what is text, what is context, and what is discourse. Now another thing that is important is Stanley Fish. Now this American scholar Stanley Fish, a critic, he says this very popular line: is there a text in this class? Now this is there is an anecdote, like a student approaches Stanley Fish and raises this question: is there a text in this class? Now when the student raises this question, actually the student wanted to know, like the text here means not the reading material. So when the student raises the question, is there a text in this class, actually Stanley Fish assumes that the student is asking about the reading material. So generally it happens like a student comes to teacher and they ask like, okay, what is the text in the class? And we say like, okay, read these books. These books are available here. I will give you a book and you just get it Xerox for yourself. So this is like basically the meaning what Stanley Fish understood. But when the student raises that question, a student has theoretical viewpoint. Like when we attend a class, then we need to know like what theoretical point we are going to take. So is there a text in the class? it's basically a linguistic utterance. So it's linguistic, that means a language utterance. Here it is written, so it can be an interrogative sentence, but it is open to many interpretation. One interpretation is reading material, other interpretation is theoretical viewpoint, fine. Another interpretation is like very specific one book. So there are many interpretation, and any text is open to many interpretation that we know, but all interpretations are not valid. Like interpretations, like there is a tiger burning bright in the forest of the night. Now tiger is burning bright in the forest. And now if someone says like this is a poem that someone has consumed the meat of the tiger and there is a digestion problem, so that's why tiger burning, tiger is burning, the meat of tiger is burning in the stomach, and you will say this is my interpretation of this text. So that means like all interpretations are actually not valid. Then what is the solution? Then Stanley Fish gives this term interpretive communities. That means like there is a community, we are literary community, we agree on certain meaningfulness. Like if someone says like the consuming the meat of tiger and you have a digestion problem, so in a poetry, I am not interested to read about the dietary problem at all. I am looking for some greater, some deeper meaning. So that is not the part of my interpretive, like many interpretive communities, they will simply discard that type of reading. So what is this? Interpretive community, like they say certain interpretations are valid and certain interpretations are not valid at all. So you have a text, and when you say reader has an authority, but reader also falls under interpretive communities. For example, I live in democracy, you live in democracy, and you say like in democracy every man is free, but you can't walk naked. So this is like the interpretive community, they qualify for certain interpretations, certain meaningfulness, and certain meanings are discarded. So this is basically the reader, how the meaning is produced. This is actually the thing that we have. So we will discuss this thing further. And so what Stanley Fish states that the meaning are already conditioned by the situation in which it was uttered. Now this is very interesting and very important thing, that you if you consider like language is associated in the meaning, language is associated in sentence, language is associated in morphology or syntax. Stanley Fish said no, this is not the case. Language meaning is actually situated in pragmatics. That means the usage. And what Wittgenstein says in philosophical investigations, the meaning of a word or meaning of a sentence or meaning of a phrase or a clause is its use in the language. So what comes important? Use. And when we use this term use, then the context also comes into being, usage also comes into being. And when we talk about context, then what we discuss, that context basically deals with the knowable thing that we have. So knowable context transforms text into discourse. So when we talk about the situation, we are actually talking about this knowable context, and that is responsible for meaningfulness, because it transforms text into discourse. And the further Fish says, but what protects us against the indeterminacy of signifiers? So indeterminacy, like when we give full authority to a reader, and when we say like reader, as the bar says, like author is dead, and the reader has the authority to interpret the text, we are actually highlighting indeterminacy. Like we signifiers are free now. So subjectivity will become too high, that I will say no, this interpretation, you will say this interpretation, but this is not the way the literature works. Then what comes into being? This interpretive communities. So these communities, they say like, okay, these meanings are actually valid and these meanings are not actually valid. So this like interpretive communities actually protect the indeterminacy of signifiers. So signifier cannot be anything. So now if I say like this is a mouse, then I will say it mouse in Hindi as well. So it won't happen that tomorrow I will start saying this is chua, and then you will say like, so this is like indeterminacy of signifier. If I say indeterminacy of signifier and I say like this is chua now onward, then you will say no, it is not valid. It is mouse in Hindi as well. So you need to say it mouse. So this is like, this protects this interpretive communities. Actually, they protect us against the indeterminacy of signifier. Further, Fish says, what promises us the ability to have common meaning? This common meaning, again, interpretive community, is that there is always a contextual setting and the sign of its presence. This thing is very important, and you need to understand this thing. A contextual setting, as I said, like one sign interacts with other sign. This contextual setting is also a sign, and this contextual setting as a sign is presence, and it is presence against the absence of any reference. So when I say tiger, tiger burning bright, now tiger, tiger burning bright, you can't refer to me in a forest and you say, look, that is the tiger and that tiger is burning bright. And you will say, oh, look, there in the picture, tiger is burning bright. So that is actually the absence of actual reference, but you have a contextual setting. As you have a contextual setting, and you, when I say tiger, tiger burning bright, then you can think of some other allusions. Fine, other allusions, other references you can think of that are actually absence in the real life. That is basically the meaning, and that is responsible for like protecting us for the indeterminacy of signifiers. So we agree that context precedes sentence. Like when we say a sentence, it doesn't mean like once we say a sentence, then there is a context, but the context is already there in our memory. Such type of sentences, utterances, or certain type of things is already there in our memory, in our past thing. So we just make an association with the past thing or something that is related to that particular thing, and that knowable context is again responsible. So what we actually do, we will fall back to context. That means like we use our past memory in which we are accustomed to hear such utterances. So we just look, contemplate, look back, okay, such type of thing where I have read, what is the association, what is the connection. Sometimes it so happens like when we read an unknown word, we try to figure out like what could be the possible meaning of that particular word. And how can we do that? When we make associations, and associations based on our past memories, we do likewise. So the bottom line is understanding requires situational competence. So like linguistic competence is not that important, but situational competence is more important. So even if I say colorless green ideas sleep furiously, now you understand like something that is colorless how can be green. But again, if I say, no, you need to write an interpretation of this sentence, colorless green ideas sleep furiously, because ideas cannot sleep, and even ideas sleep, they can't sleep furiously. We sleep silently, we sleep peacefully, we sleep nicely, but we can't sleep furiously. But still, if I say, then what you will do? You protect yourself with the indeterminacy of signifiers. How? You protect yourself with situational competence, and we all have situational competence. So when we say like human being is very flexible, when a situation comes, the person molds himself or herself according to that situation. How does this happen? This happen because we have situational competence. That we have, any situation comes, we have the situational competence with us. So linguistic competence is always narrow, but what is broad, that is situational competence. And this situational competence, because linguistic competence is basically a trap. It is a trap of indeterminacy of signifiers, but situational competence is actually a solution of like of pulling us out from this linguistic trap actually. So what we want to say that words themselves do not determine the meaning, but rather the context, the discourse. Because what is discourse? Knowable context is discourse, and that knowable context transforms text into a discourse in which they take part. But it so happens like some people say like when we read Derrida, we don't understand anything. When we read Bloom, we don't understand anything. And sometimes when we read Stanley Fish, it is very difficult. So what is the problem here? Like why Derrida becomes difficult, why Bloom becomes difficult, why Stanley Fish becomes difficult? when we say like at one point we say we have situational competence, but then if you have situational competence, then you can read any author with ease. But we say no, certain authors are very difficult to read, like Zizek is again very difficult, or Foucault is again difficult. So how these writers, they become difficult because they are also dealing with text, context, and discourse. They are not writing something out of the blue. So the answer is why and how they become. So M.H. Abrams, he provides the answers. And what is the answer? M.H. Abrams says that the literal normative meaning were overruled by stubborn interpreters. So these are actually stubborn interpreters and who impose their own meanings. So these are what they did actually. They imposed their own meaning on us. That means like the language they used or the thing they wanted to say, that was not normative. That was not the part of interpretive communities, but they imposed something that is out of the sphere of interpretive communities. And because of that particular thing, they became difficult. They become like quite difficult for us. Okay, we move further. So we have discussed this text, context, discourse, and how this interpretation is related to it. Now we will see one practical example how to analyze a text. Now this is one example that I have for you. Now this is quite interesting example that we have. Now this example, I read it for you. Almighty God, our heavenly Father, who of thy tender mercy didst give thine only Son Jesus Christ to suffer death upon the cross of our redemption. Now if I say write something about this, you will say the text. What is text here? It is liturgical prayer that, you know, it is a prayer. Almighty God, we are praying God. What is the variety? It is an example of religious English. What is the usage? Like where it is used? It is used generally in church service. So this is like basic information that you have. And then when I say write something about it, you will write, okay, God gives his only Son Jesus to save human beings and he died for us. So this is the basic. But as a student of literature, we are not satisfied with this one line, one sentence, or two lines like interpretation. So how can we enrich our interpretation? How can we enrich our interpretation? That I will show you, and you will find it very interesting that how it can be interpreted better. So now, as you can see that certain words are highlighted like Almighty God. So there is a connection. Why I have used different color scheme. So there is a connection, like this is red. So there is a connection between here. Now this F and S, there is a connection, like of tender mercy, there is a connection. Thy and thine connection, suffer death, cross, redemption, there is a connection. So that's why intentionally I have used this color scheme here. So now this is the connection. Like what is the connection? When we say Almighty God, then we know this is an example of vocative case. So we have this vocative case here, and not only vocative case, but this Almighty God, now here it is replaced by relative pronoun who. Then we have this F capitalized, S capitalized. So it also has some important function we will see. Now when we look at this thing in gray, like of tender mercy, we will find that there is some word order here. Now this word order is also important that we know. Like what is the importance of word order here? Then this is like collocation, suffer death, cross, and redemption. So there is like they are collocatively associated with each other. So these are the things responsible for making our interpretation enriched. Otherwise, like if we ignore this information that we have, like vocative and relative, this capitalization, collocations, word order, this thy, thine thing, then we can only have this one sentence generally. So students generally, when they ignore what is there in the language, and when they do not analyze a text properly, then generally they write this type of interpretation. And this is not actually an interpretation. It is simply a paraphrase that, okay, God gives his holy Son to save human beings and he died for us. So this is basically the problem with the text, and we will also find like it is too banal, it is bland, like there is no literary flavor in it, and like this is not the way literature works. You need to enrich yourself. So how can we enrich? And this I showed, like you need to find out what is there in the text. So you need to find out the textuality of the text. So this is adding textuality to it. And what is this? Like once we have this knowledge, then this one sentence will become like this. So what we can write, the text begins with a vocative expression. This is a vocative expression that directly addresses God, by which the connection between the addressee and addressed is well established. So this is like, generally we use vocative case in that sense. Then also the inversion of syntax. Now this is an inversion of syntax because generally we won't write like this, who of thy tender mercy. We generally write like this, the tender mercy of someone, the tender mercy of Almighty God, but we won't like who of thy tender mercy. So if we like remove thy with yours, then we will say like who of your tender mercy. Simply we'll write your tender mercy, but we won't write like this. So what we have done, we have inversion of syntax. We have deliberately inversion of syntax in order to topicalize God. Not tropicalize, it is actually topicalized. So we are making it topic, like because we know God is more important, and so we have just like first is like, but we are not repeating Almighty God, but here we are repeating it with who, a relative pronoun. So this is basically the example of topicalizing God. That's why we have deliberately inverse inverse the syntax. So this time it is substituted by relative pronoun who. Then this archaic use like didst, like didst is the archaic use. Now this is again why we have used archaic. So archaic use of the past tense auxiliary did establish its link. It link with the ancient, like indicating that the prayer is quite ancient, it is quite old, and has been used by the ancestors as well. So like all the prayers we know, like they are quite ancient, quite old, and they have been used by our ancestors. That's why we have more reputation of these prayers, and we revered them. That's why that's important for us. So this is the role of this, and similar the role of thy and thine. But also thy is also important because thy tender, it is also working as an alliterative device. So it's like the thy tender. Fine. So we have this sound, though not exactly the and the, because the and the, but at least like they are quite similar to each other, that we have. So in order to establish this alliterative function, that's why they are near to each other, that we can say. And then this capitalization is actually an example of capitonym. So capitonym is a term in semantics. And what is capitonym? I give you one example, like if I say may, M-A-Y, may, and if the M is a small letter, then it is an auxiliary, modal auxiliary. But if may with capital M, then it becomes the month. Similar with March. March is like verb, M-A-R-C-H. But if I will use with capital M, then it will become another meaning. It is the month. So similarly, when I say father and son here, like it is not the biological relation we are talking about. Like there is no biological relationship between Almighty God and the Son Jesus Christ. We are not talking about that. But what we are establishing heavenly connection. And because this is not with the small f and this is not with the small s. So this is again, this capitonym is also important, and why we have used. Because we are quite biological and we live in a society. That's why we try to use, we are also trapped in the limitation of our language, and we need to use those biological things, but we have also a solution. So this is a capitonym is a solution, and we are actually talking about not the biological but the heavenly connection they have with each other, that is there. Now the next thing that is there, like these in the yellow, suffer, death, cross, and redemptions that we have. Now what is actually this? This is actually an example of collocations. Now, why collocation? So that means like they are related to each other. Suffer, death, cross, fine. Redemptions, fine. So it's like saving, someone is saving us, fine. And the cross is actually a sign that we are using, that is a sign for Jesus Christ, because we know like the story of Jesus Christ and all such things. So this is like all these three are example of collocation. So as you can see, like when we have this finer detail, so the fabric, our text will become more refined. So you can see like this one interpretation or this one explanation, God gives his only son, Jesus, to save human beings, and he died for us. And when we add these 6 information, then automatically these lines, like these few words, will become how rich and how important. So this is like how we can analyze, how can we read text in fine detail. So this is one example. Like there can be plenty examples. Like I can analyze any text, any novel, any poetry with this finer detail. But you also need to focus on these finer detail if you want to analyze a text. Now there are certain terms that are associated with text, context, that are intertextuality and intersubjectivity. Now subjectivity, you know, like I am one subject, you are another subject, and when I interpret a subject as a subject, then I have my interpretation, you has your interpretation. So that is basically, and one subjectivity interacts with other subjectivity, that is intersubjectivity. Fine. So this is intertextuality is also different texts, they refer each other, that is basically intertextuality. But this term is inter means between. Fine. So inter, the meaning of inter means between, and text. So between text and ITY, the quality. I said like the meaning of ITY is quality. So the quality of going in between text, this is actually known as intertextuality. Similarly, ITY here is the quality of going in between subjects, that is intersubjectivity. That is basically the meaning of these two terms. So this term is basically given by Julia Kristeva. She coined this term. Julia Kristeva was actually a linguist, but later on, like, she contributed to literary theory. So linguist and literary theorists, they are quite associated. So there is no basic like hard and fast division between them. And the term synthesizes with Ferdinand Saussure's like semiotics. So this term intertextuality has a relation with semiotics. So those who do not know what is semiotics, semiotics is basically the study of sign, SIGN. So we have already discussed like how one sign interacts with other sign, and how sign derives their meaning within the structure of the text. So this is basically this intertextuality is like deals with like the interaction of sign, one sign interacts with other sign, not only in the text but also outside the text. So this is like intertextuality is also in line with there is the Bakhtinian terms like dialogism. And what is dialogism? Dialogism is basically continual dialogue with another works. So a text is an inanimate, it cannot have a dialogue with other texts, but basically when we read a text, then either we alludes or either the writer has already alluded. Fine. So this is like the basic meaning of dialogism. And we have this term again by Bakhtin, like the heteroglossia, that is again the multiple meaning. And this multiple meaning is like related to intersubjectivity, because we have different subjects and each subject has different interpretation that we have. But what happens actually, intertextuality replaces intersubjectivity. In Julia Kristeva, that meaning is not transferred directly from writer to reader, but instead mediated through filtered by codes. So that is like, this is like not a one-to-one transfer, that writer is like transferring meaning to subjects and subjects are getting the meaning at all. This is not actually the case, but it is under codes. And what is the code, or who knows the code? Again, the answer is interpretive communities, they note the codes. Fine. So again, like this is actually the codes. And once we talk about code, that means certain things are permitted, certain things are not permitted. So for example, if you design the language of the computer, then certain codes are permitted and certain codes, they crash the system. So this is similarly like the role of interpretive community becomes important, that intertextuality replaces intersubjectivity. So this is meaningful, like intersubjectivity is not that important, because intersubjectivity will create a chaos. The intersubjectivity, what will happen, intersubjectivity will create indeterminacy of meaning. But this is not how the literature works. So we works on agreement, we do not work on disagreement. So generally, like even though we have many disagreement, then finally we have a logical conclusion. So that is basically intertextuality, that it mediated. So there is a mediation through or filtered by codes. That is again important. And why we are discussing this thing? Because these things are associated with text and context. That's why we are discussing. Then this term like intertextuality, then we have this hypertextuality as well. So post-structuralist, they re-examines intertextuality as a production within text. So there is a difference, like in Julia Kristeva's intertextuality, when she talks about intertextuality, that means like one text interacts with other text. So there is a possibility like someone who is writing in the present time and the text is interacting with Shakespeare's text. So that is basically the example of intertextuality. But what post-structuralists generally they re-examines intertextuality as a production within text. So like even within the text, not outside the text. And we have this term hypertext also, that is also related to, that is like earlier work, as I have given the example, present work has an association with the Shakespeare text or like Chaucer text. So this is basically the example of hypertext. But there is like hypertext is not actually hypertextuality. Fine.
Sir, Tanveer here. Can you just a slight interruption?
Yeah.
Sir, can you full screen the PowerPoint, because the users on YouTube are saying that it's not clear. If you can.
Okay. So is it possible? But
it is not this way, not this way. You can play it from the beginning and then go to this. There is this view at the top of the PowerPoint. You can see next to review.
Okay. I got you.
Or you can also do it, there is a bucket kind of an icon at the right bottom of this PowerPoint. You can even full screen it from there.
Okay, let me go to that slide first. This we have discussed, this also we have discussed. We were discussing this, yes.
To the left bottom, the other right. Go to view. See, view. It is here next to review. Rather to the slideshow. Like,
yes, view there is, yeah.
Slideshow. See slideshow.
Okay, there is a reading view.
First, second, third, fourth, and fifth, sir.
Slide master.
No. Slideshow. That one, sir.
The view slideshow.
First, second, third.
Okay.
Yes. From the current slide.
From the current slide.
From the current slide. Yes. Sir.
Yeah.
So I think like now it's visible.
Yes.
So this is like these terms, like why we are discussing these terms, like because they are related to textuality and context, and we discussed like there is a difference between the view Julia Kristeva posits, like what is intertextuality, and the other view that is by post-structuralist, so a production within the text. So like this is a slight difference. And we say like hypertext and hypertextuality, though they sound similar, but there is a difference between the two. Hypertext is like finding out allusions or reference from the present text to the past. That is basically hypertext, also known as hypotext. And when we talk about hypertextuality, then basically this is related to this media terminology that is related to computers. And I give you one examples nowadays, like lots of magazines are also online. So when you click to like India Today magazine, now there is a problem of hypertextuality there. Like before it actually opens, then there is a 10-second, 15-second video you need to compulsorily watch. Like, so this is like, so sometimes it happens like you are in a meeting and you are opening like India Today and then the music starts playing. So, or any other thing, like you can't work discreetly. So this thing is also there. So this is not the example of hypertextuality, but this example, particularly in case with India Today, is particularly forced hypertextuality. Like you, in order to read first, you need to watch that 15-20 minutes video as well, though you like it or not, but this is a compulsion. So this is again the example of hypertextuality that I have given. Then there is also one term that is associated, that is metatext, and metatext is basically talks about the code. As Roman Jacobson, he also gave the term metalingual, and metalingual is like language about language. So it's about code. So it can be spoken code. So I am using spoken code. Now this text is like on the written, but not written, but it is actually a hypertext that you have. So metatext is again the writing that reflects on writing. So linguistics, you can say, what is linguistics? Linguistics is basically a metatext. So it is a meta language. So it's language about language, that is linguistics. So how these terms are associated. Then this thing is also there. It's from of grammatology that Derrida says like there is nothing outside the text, and there is a myth related to this. Like people consider that everything is in the text. This is not the meaning of nothing outside the text. There is nothing outside the text. Because because it looks like this, and as I said, like Derrida and Stanley Fish and Bloom, generally they are stubborn critics. They impose their meaning on us. So if we go for the normative reading, then the meaning is there is nothing outside the text. We'll say our memory suggests us, or like our uh, let's say like interpretive community suggested like everything is in the text, and we are quite fine with it. Okay, this is the meaning of this sentence, but this is not what Derrida says. Like text is actually a trap, that we cannot come out for the reality. Like if you want to realize reality, you cannot come out from the text and realize reality. So you human beings, we are actually trapped in the text. We are, text here means language. We are trapped in the language, and if we want to realize reality, we again need to go to the text. Then we need to realize reality. We think like, okay, we remove the text and then we realize the reality. Then it is not possible. So that is the meaning of basically there is nothing outside the text. And I read what it is here. Textuality means that reference is not to external reality. That is the thing. Like you cannot remove the text and then reach to new meaning. That is like the assumption of much Western thought is actually this, but to other text intertextuality. So again, this is like it's not possible. Like with intertextuality, you will realize the meaning of a text. So it's not the case like you're reading T.S. Eliot, and there is a reference of Shakespeare, and you start reading Shakespeare, and then you realize, okay, this is what T.S. Eliot means. This is not the case. It will give you some modifications, some more idea, but the reality of the text is situated in the text itself. Here, text means language. So this is my the last slide, and this is my overall presentation. And what we have discussed, as you can see, like very quickly, I will recap in 5 minutes that what I discussed. That I discussed like what is text and what is textuality and how text is situated. And I discussed like what is the meaning of ITI suffix, that is textuality. We know like a text has a literary style and text is woven, that we discussed. And we also discussed the relationship between literature, language, and linguistics. And we also discussed like how this meaningfulness comes into beings, and this meaningful comes into beings because we have a syntagmatic and paradigmatic relationship, and we have studied syntagmatic and paradigmatic relationship at sound level, stylistic level, syntactic level. Then we have seen like how the concept of sign is there, and like word is also a sign, and how one word interacts with other sign. Then we have studied like starting from a phoneme and reaching to sentence, and how a sentence is different from a discourse, and what makes discourse a discourse, that we have also studied. So we have a knowable context that makes a text a discourse, that we discussed, and how a text can be decontextualized, that we have discussed. Then we also discussed the concept of Stanley Fish, and Stanley Fish gives importance to interpretive communities, that we have seen. And the meaning of the word is in the usage, that we have also discussed, like as Wittgenstein says. And we know like interdeterminacy of signifier is a problem for us, but solution again lies in the interpretive communities that we have seen. And we have also seen that understanding of situational competence is more important than the lingual competence, because lingual competence is narrow and situational competence is broad. And we also discussed like Derrida, Bloom, and Fish, why they are difficult writers, because they are stubborn interpreters who impose their meaning on us. Then we have seen one practical example how a text can be analyzed, and how can we reach textuality of a text when we go to finer detail. So then that is possible. Then we have seen like with the help of these minute details, we can write beautiful interpretation, that we have seen. Then certain interrelated terms, intertextuality, intersubjectivity, and then hypertextuality, hypertext, metatext, that we have discussed. And finally, we have discussed nothing is outside the text, that's said by, and what is the myth related to this thing, and why this is a myth, because we are going for the formative meaning. But as we know, like Derrida is a stubborn interpreter. So what is written in the plain language, that is not the meaning, but meaning is something different. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Shall I end it, sir? Thank you, sir. So it was quite illuminating, quite lucid and compact, sir. Sir, your name signifies big B, right? So I should also refer here the name of big B. You are Amitabh of literature, right? I should not exaggerate it. Participants are requested to participants are requested to mute their children. Okay. So, sir, thank you very much. Is there any query on the part of participants? It's a quite, you can say, debatable topic. Language, referent, text and context. So, we can have some questions, queries. If you have queries, you can make it so that sir can answer it. And it's quite, you can say, it is an opportunity for our us juniors, right? So to satisfy, to fulfill that, we can say some interrogations in our mind, right? So I wish that there should be some queries.
So may I ask one question?
Yeah, please. Everyone is, the session is open for discussion only.
So I am Shri Prasadar from Kerala.
Yes.
It was really a wonderful session, sir. My question is regarding all these sign signifier patterns are moving in the form of discourse. Actually, where lies the meaning? Or can we decipher anything from a text?
Yeah. I got your question. As I said, like there are two terms. There is one term is like intersubjectivity, another term is intertextuality.
Yes, sir.
And another term is interpretive communities. So if you if you solely rely on intersubjectivity, then obviously it will create indeterminacy of meaning, because each individual has the ability to create his or her own meaning. So generally, like we have a meaning for life, and we say like my meaning of life is different from your meaning of life. Sometimes like we say like my suffering is more important than your suffering. You do not understand how I suffer. So this ability we have in human beings, we have this inherent ability to create meaning for our own understanding. But this is not the way literature works. Because if we create our own meanings, then certain meanings will be valid, certain meanings will not be valid. As I said, like tiger, tiger burning bright. Tiger, tiger burning bright is not like the problem of indigestion because I have consumed the meat of a tiger. That is not the, and if you say, no, no, I am very comfortable because this meaning is like, because I am a food lover. So this meaning, I am satisfied with this meaning. So this is not the way literature works. So this will create indeterminacy of meaning, indeterminacy of signifiers. And the solution lies in interpretive communities, or the solution lies in intertextuality. You say like, I am not satisfied with what the previous interpretations are, or let's say like what the previous critics has written, I am not satisfied with them. So that means like you are discarding interpretive communities. Then what is the solution? Solution is you move from intersubjectivity, or you can support your intersubjectivity with intertextuality. You can go to other text that has the reference to it, and then find out, okay, this can also be the signified. So this is the signifier and this can be the signified. This is my answer to this.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir, the reference.
Yeah. Hello.
Sir, please.
Hello, Rathod sir.
Please.
Hello.
You can, sir. Sir, Amit Kapoor sir, please ask question.
Okay, thank you. Amitabh sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible, but voice is like
very low.
yeah.
Very low.
I'll just try. Is it okay, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So firstly, let me thank you and congratulate you for enlightening us, and in a nutshell, so many theories covered by you.
Thank you.
And fired up. So thank you for that.
I think he can type also. He can type in the chat. I can reply the answer. You can type in the chat the question. I will reply to that answer. Because your voice is not clear and sometimes your video is also paused.
Sir, I have a question. Sir,
Yeah, please.
Sir, these references are used in language, right? When we interpret these references or reference, then can we find some division? Can we find some, you can say, difference of this context? For example, a particular reference used for the discrimination of a girl in India may have different interpretation in the West.
Okay. So what I have understood from your question, that can the language can refer to something or not?
Yeah.
So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
like sometimes language refers to things, like language refers to certain things. Language refers to something that is like that is concrete and that is abstract. For example, like if I say like this is a mouse, so I can refer to it. You can also see it. Okay, this is a mouse, and I have a meaning of it. Like, okay, this is a mouse. But there are certain concepts, like there is a concept of peace. So what is peace of mind for you? It is not a peace of mind for me. Sometimes what is war for you? What is not war for me? So language refers to both the things. What is like concrete and what is that abstract? It refers to. But sometimes it happens that writer also creates new words they won't refer directly to. For example, let's say I think this example will be quite related to what you suggested. Like in one of my Hindi poem, I have used the word chocolate baji. Now I know that baji is like, we generally use this baji. So baji is like to making something a chocolate baji. Now chocolate baji is a new word. It's a neologism for him. But why I have used that new word in a context. And when I use chocolate baji, it becomes a symbol that someone will give a chocolate to a girl and then later on molest that girl. So this is how. So we as a writer, we can create new words. Like chocolate baji, there was no word earlier to this, but I created it because we have these examples. So when you read, as a reader, when you read chocolate baji, first of all, the context of the text will help you to find out the meaning. Even if the context of the text is not helping you to find out the meaning, then you will go for intertextuality. Intertextuality means there are various news in the newspaper that, okay, someone allures a child with a chocolate, and later on the person molested that kid. So this thing is always, so things like language is referred to, and human beings, they have this capability as a reader to find out whether within the context, or sometimes like using intertextuality, and sometimes also intersubjectivity with their own interpretation, because we have in the memory certain context where this thing happened and we match with that context.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Hello.
Please, please.
Sir, I am Manzoor Ahmed Wani from Jammu and Kashmir UT.
Yeah, Manjar Wani sir, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, it was really an outstanding and insightful session from Dr. Amitabh Dwivedi, sir. I have a question. He said how to enrich interpretation. For this, context is must. At the same time, he mentioned a word, vocative expression. Shall elaborate it? What is vocative expression?
Okay, vocative expression is actually an example of vocative case. We have case markers in language. So let's say when we say like hey Ram, when we say hey Ram, so hey is an example of vocative case. So when we say hey Bhagwan, tu kahan hai? So actually, like, we are using vocative case. Hey Bhagwan is not actually, so we are just making a connection with the God. So Almighty God. Almighty God is actually, I am addressing to the God, and that's why Ya Allah, we say Ya Allah. So Ya Allah is what? Like, we are making our connection with the God, and how it is possible to make this connection with the vocative case. So vocative is like a case of of address. We address to the person, so that is like more prominent. So we are like addressing directly to the God. We don't need any mediation between us. I can directly connect to the God. That is like the function of vocative case here in that particular example, Almighty God.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. This is Dr. Vipin this side.
Yes, Vipin.
Yeah. First of all, I congratulate you, Dr. Amitabh. It was a wonderful presentation, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So I have a very a small question. Well, while going through a piece of literature, should we keep or consider these points or ingredients that you have spoken or you have mentioned here into our minds? Because when you take a piece of work, for example, you are taking novel. So when you take, certain pages of the novel, and the novel may be, quite philosophical, or it would be, touching some other aspects also. But how to concentrate on these particular ingredients or these particular components? Because if you are concentrating on these things or these components, I think that piece of literature, maybe that piece of literature of 150 pages or 200 pages would be very much larger. So this is my query.
This is like I have given you one example of textual analysis. So I am not saying that you use textual analysis solely. Textual analysis must be supported with theoretical lens. Then textual analysis is actually valid. So one thing should complement other. And a good researcher, like if you are writing a research for PhD, then word limit is, first of all, there is no limitation. Like you can write 500 pages. No one will say like why you have written 500 pages. You write 200 pages, then it is also fine. But because in research, we repeat certain things, we say certain things many times, but when you are writing a paper, then you can't repeat. So there is a difference between writing a paper and writing a PhD research. This is first difference that you need to keep in mind. Second thing is like, you can categorize that my textual analysis, my finer detail will only supplement. They will not become the core. This you need to decide. Core will be the theoretical lens, and these things will only supplement. So this way you can work like something like we make and we make like orange juice, or like we make milkshake. So milkshake, like 2 spoon sugar is fine for milkshake for 1 glass. So you need to use textual analysis like 2 spoon sugar, and the main focus will be the theoretical lens. That way you should work. So you need to make a balance. Like generally we are very we are capable of making balance. We make a balance between personal life and professional life. So similarly, once you write a research paper, this textual analysis, they may assist you to write finer things, good things, but they must be worked like 2 spoon sugar. Not it main content will be the milk and the other the other ingredient that you are mixing it. This is where you can do. So it's like you need to make a balance.
Right, Professor. I thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any question? Is there any query?
There is like the symbols have cultural connotation. Like Romina Rashid has raised like one question. Symbols have cultural connotations. Yes. Like because language is societal. Like language is not like my creation, your creation, but language is a mutual agreement between the people, and we have a cultural connection. Like without cultural connection, there can't be a language. So language is very much metaphorical. If I say die, then die meaning she is living, but die is also kicking the bucket. So if I say kick the bucket, it becomes idiom. If I say, so this is like this is how the language is quite cultural. And Hindi we say like Swarg Sidhar Gaye. Now Swarg Sidhar Gaye is also a quite cultural thing. So this type of thing is like cultural connotation is also there. And previously someone raised some question related to clause. Someone raised like, can you please some more focus on superordinate clause? I think like superordinate clause, if you are talking about grammar, then generally we have this ordinate and subordinate clause. Main clause, because you have used main clause. So superordinate is not actually the term, it is subordinate. So subordinate is like, sub means like under, So a clause that comes under the main clause is subordinate clause. That is basically the meaning of a subordinate clause. Main clause is a main clause, and the subordinate clause is the subordinate clause. Generally, subordinate clause, they are linked with the main clause with that. So generally, like that works as the linking device. So this is how one clause is connected to other clause. So this is how I understand. Then someone's Bharat Ahmed Dhar, what is the role of phonetics in creating meaning? Like phonetics, morphology, syntax, they are interrelated. So language is primary. First thing, when I speak something, you hear sound. How this understanding comes into being. When I say something, then these are only sound waves. Sound waves are going into your ear. Your ear, there is an auditory apparatus. That auditory apparatus is transferring those sound waves into meaningful word, clause, or sentence. So my sound waves, and you realize whether I have said a word or clause, a sentence. And later on, those word, clauses, phrases, sentences, they are transferred into meaningful concepts and ideas. So this is how we reach from sound waves into meaning. This is how we work. So phonetics is also the part of, if you know phonetics, then obviously you can have a finer interpretation of poetry. Right. So this is like important because poetry is very much good, like something that is good to hear, then that is a thing.
Tanveer here.
Sir.
Yes, Tanveer sir.
So we have a question on YouTube. A user is asking, Love English, what is the difference between text analysis and discourse analysis?
Okay. Textual, as I said, like textual analysis is more focused on the individual details that we have in the text. As we have discussed, like Almighty God is the example of an example of vocative case. Then who is the example of relative case that we have? Then we have seen like the capitalization. So individually specific like locations, we find out and locate the text and try to analyze it. But when we talk about discourse analysis, generally we are talking about the cohesion. Like we have seen examples of like only one sentence. And even it is a one sentence or a one phrase or a one clause, you can have a textual analysis. So textual analysis is, it's like it can be done at word level, phrase level, clause level, sentence level. But when we talk about discourse analysis, then we are taking a bigger picture in our mind, because as we know that what is a discourse, that a sentence more than of all discourse. So how one sentence is connected to other sentence, what is the connection, how how one sentence as a sign is working as a cohesive device for other. So when we talk about this, then this is the part of discourse analysis. So discourse analysis is like a more bigger picture, the things that you need to keep in mind, that is like intersentential. And when you are textual analysis, then basically you are related to individual words, phrases, clauses, or a sentence. This is the very broad distinction. So let's say like when you are making a connection between line 1 and line 10, then this is an example of discourse analysis.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Amitabh sir, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible, very much audible.
Okay. So sorry for the the glitch that happened. My earphone was not working.
Okay.
So firstly, let me thank you for the excellent, I would say, in a nutshell, all those theories that you have served to us today. We are probably going to remember your line, "Tiger, tiger, burning bright." We are going to have an indigestion today. But thank you very much. Now I was just having a small question.
Yes.
You talked about Stanley Fish, and Stanley Fish has said that context precedes a sentence. Now, I was just wondering, when it comes to a child,
yes,
and who has just started learning a language, the
yeah.
child probably doesn't have a context. So, what would you say about Stanley Fish's? How would you link it to this?
No. That is like a child. It is a myth that a child does not have a context, because child knows very well that if I cry like this, then only mama will come. So that context is already there. If I cry like this, then mama will not come and feed me. So child knows very well that if I only cry like this, and up to that long, up to that that intensity, that frequency, then only I will get to be fed. So that is like context is very much there. So this is a myth that child does not have a context. Context is very much there. So that is like context precedes sentence. That is the meaning.
Sir, here I want to mention that child is the father of man.
Yeah, yes. Child is the father of the man. That Wordsworth has said about this, right? So I think that we should all agree with Wordsworth.
And
Obviously, sir, obviously.
And Amitabh sir.
Yes.
On a lighter note,
Yeah.
you talked about M.H. Abrams saying that literal and normative meanings were overruled by stubborn interpreters. Now,
Yes.
does this not happen? Would this not be happening with us when we are teaching our students? They would be looking at us as stubborn interpreters.
Yes, it happens like we are stubborn not as an interpreter, but we are stubborn as like resource providers, like, and in disciplinary activities, like you just remain silent and listen to me carefully. In that sense, we are like more disciplinarian rather than interpreter. But very true, like very true.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, sir. So there is also you can say flow of text, right? And the text also may change,
Yes.
right?
So may I ask one more question, sir?
Yeah, please.
Sir, as you have said right now, do you feel that the culture creates that semantic field or just civility?
Cultural create?
Culture creates that semantic field, or as the sir rightly pointed out, is the civility?
Okay, civility, and basically culture is responsible for many things, because culture is an umbrella term, and language also falls under culture. So but in what sense you are using this term culture? Because post coronavirus, if we think of like where our culture is going, then we will think about like people are dying of a simple pneumonia.
Yes,
And
yes.
so this is like this is also a culture, and like we find like people who are in the cities, like those who used to consider themselves more cultured and like more sophisticated, like they are more prone to coronavirus than the people who are living in villages. Like they are more safe, and like only those who are migrating from cities to villages, they are only spreading virus there. So the concept of culture is like varied, and like different people have different interpretation related to this culture. But definitely like language is not one man's work or one man's activity. It is a product of culture, and it is a product of society. Fine. So culture contributes a lot to language. Fine. And our culture we express through language. So when we say something about culture, then language becomes a meta language. Like we are saying, using language about culture. So this is like how they are interrelated to each other. But obviously culture is like a big term, and language falls under that culture.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
We have some pandemic swept right now. And we can change it, right? So post-COVID scenario may be something different.
Definitely.
Yes.
Tanvi.
Tanvi sir, please.
So now, as Amit sir also said that we could also be considered as stubborn interpreters. Now, just coming to Stanley Fish, and like we who teach theory or interpretation to the students, which one should we promote, Stanley Fish or Jacques Derrida?
I think students will be more of a free thinker. They should know about all these theories, like all these literary lens are there. Because why literary lens are important? Because literary lens are important. I give this example, and I like this example very much. Like you are standing in Delhi. You are standing somewhere in New Delhi, and you have a binocular in your hand. And if I say like, okay, can you see someone who is in New York? Then you will say, no, it's how is it possible? Like I can see 2 kilometer, 5 kilometer, 50 kilometer, but how can I see someone who is in New York and when I am standing in Delhi and using these binoculars? So binocular is also like, it's a limitation. So binocular, all our literary theories, reading practices are different type of binoculars. They have certain limitations. So Stanley Fish is like one binocular, it has one limitation. Derrida has one binocular, one limitation. So we can't say like, okay, hold this binocular and see the entire world that you have. It's not possible. So we need to give them all the binoculars, and we will say, okay, these binoculars are also there, but you need to keep your mind open, and there is a possibility that you can also create your own binocular.
That is like, what do you read, my lord? And he said,
Yeah.
words and words. Sir, is there any question?
From YouTube, so a user asks, Nancy Kumari, sir, is this concept of context precedes text same as that of essence precedes existence?
What exists precedes existence? Yes, what is that?
Is precedes existence.
Uh,
Shall I repeat the whole question?
Yeah, you know, only the phrase, like what precedes existence?
He says the concept of context precedes text, same as that of essence precedes existence.
These type of, like, because like when I say context precedes sentence, and automatically we start comparing with the other concepts. So like it is not like a good practice, like to compare a cat with a rat. So it's like not a good practice, but generally we have this habit of comparing things. So we can't compare two things like simply like putting because they look similar like this, like we say like being precedes existence, or like essence precedes existence. So we should not compare like this. So I don't want to comment, because this is like not an easy topic to say here. It is simply like making a comparison between what is the difference between cat and rat. So that will be like this.
Sir, that is the concept given by Sartre, right? Essence precedes existence. Nah?
Yeah.
If I have not forgotten, right? But thank you, sir. You cannot compare two. You can say different things, very different. Okay. Is there any question? I find no question, sir. Now, I would like to invite my respected principal, Dr. G.R. Parmar, for vote of thanks.
Hello everyone. Dr. Amitabh Dwivedi, Head of the Department, School of Language and Literature, Shri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Katra, Jammu and Kashmir. And today's topic is text, textuality and disclosure. Dr. Amitabh Dwivedi is also international famous professor. He has discussed about text and context, textuality, hypertextuality, and how language can make more meaning visible. Every reading is not valid. His lecture is wonderful, interesting, and useful for learners. I again thank you very much to sir and our participant. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much on behalf of Government Arts and Commerce College, Netrang, Gujarat.
Welcome.
I thank Shri Tanveer Ahmed. He has provided me a technical hand. I thank all the participants. Amit Kapoor Saab, as I remember, Kapil Kapoor Saab, right? He was also, you can say, he is also an eminent professor, right? From JNU, right?
Yes.
So, Dr. Kapoor Saab, Mitali Desai ma'am, then Dipali Thakur ma'am, Geeta, Bashat, Mansoor, Dipali ji, Uma ji, Hitesh Gandhi ji, Kunjal ji, right? I thank you all. Thank you for participating in my 43rd webinar. The sky is not limit. We have 44 in the in the evening. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Tanveer sir, after the meeting we will have, right? Another.